So we've been talking about leptin and some general rules that you can use to make sure that your body is having that appropriate leptin upload in the middle of the night so your brain knows how much energy it has, so you can set your metabolism and so you can make sure your body can go through a good healing process. All really important, right? What I want to get into next is a meal by meal breakdown, because again, we've gone over some general rules, but there's some nuance in terms of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I want to start with dinner because leptin is a hormone that uploads closer towards bedtime, so usually around the middle of the night. So dinner tends to be the meal that will most directly influence your leptin because it is so close to it in terms of when it normally uploads. The first recommendation I have for eating dinner, either no carbs, if you can just keep away from the carbs, and then this is especially during the winter months. UV light helps us process our carbohydrates. And so in the summer, it's not nearly as big of a deal. There's plenty of UV light. It's light out much later. And so we're able to digest those carbohydrates much more easily, and it has much less of an implication in terms of messing with our digestive hormones and our leptin. So again, this can be seasonal. If we're more towards winter, you may be thinking more of the no carbs, or if you're more in the summer, carbohydrates are okay. I wouldn't make it a huge carbohydrate bomb because again, carbohydrates will have the highest tendency to spike your insulin and spike your cortisol, both of which mess with your leptin. So what we can also do, and another thing to consider, is when you're eating your carbohydrates with dinner, try to make them in season. We'll talk more about this in a future video, but not only is it a sustainable choice, which is where most of the conversation happens around, but from how it impacts your body, there is certain things that we also need to consider with our in-season fruits and vegetables. So again, we'll dive more into that in an upcoming video, but I do recommend if you're gonna be eating carbohydrates dinner, try to make it something that's in season for where you live. So again, like a lot of our fruits and vegetables are imported from Central and South America. If you can find anything that's grown more near you or at your same latitude, that's gonna be easier for your body to handle. Tip number 2, don't eat after dark. We already talked about this one extensively in previous videos, so if you haven't checked those out, I recommend you do that. Quick overview is that anytime we eat, we get that insulin, we get that cortisol, it messes with our leptin. And so if we're eating after dark, that's when leptin's trying to come in, and then we have this big clash. So leptin's trying to come in, cortisol and insulin are saying, get out, your brain's like, how much energy do I have? And chaos is kind of the result. And again, there's all these different things like brain fog and trouble healing and difficulty controlling metabolism that can result. Tip number 3 for dinner, if you can eat 25 grams of protein, that's a great way to start. It's gonna spike your cortisol and insulin less than a carbohydrate would. And the other thing is it makes you feel fuller for longer, which goes right into our next tip, which is if you can eat 4 to 5 hours before bedtime, that's ideal. What happens is that allows cortisol and insulin to go through its full wave where it's calmed down nicely and it's not really hanging out anymore as leptin's trying to come in, so we don't have any interference or clash between the two. And then last thing is if you are going to fast, so a lot of people are doing intermittent fasting or playing around with how and when they're eating meals. So if you are going to fast, my recommendation is do it with dinner. It is by far the most conducive and the most in rhythm with your natural circadian rhythm throughout the day. Because we're winding up, it's really natural for cortisol to elevate as we're hitting midday, and then it starts to wind down as we get closer towards bed. So with that in mind, if we can just avoid eating at the end of the day, then we're not reintroducing cortisol at the end of the day. And again, it just falls in really nice rhythm with your body's natural tendency to wind down and want to start to engage with your healing and resting mechanism at the end of the day. So, quick recap. Best recommendations for dinner to be friendly for introducing good leptin and being able to get that good metabolism and good healing response. Number 1, either no carbs or in-season carbs with dinner, and try to keep it less carbs than you would do with like lunch. 2, don't eat after dark. If you do that, if you haven't eaten and it's dark outside, one quick tip is you can just take a scoop of butter or just a pure fat. Pure fat will not spike insulin or cortisol, so that way you can still eat something, you're not starving before bedtime, but you're not messing with the leptin. So that's just a quick side hack. But don't eat after dark, 25 grams of protein, try to eat 4 to 5 hours before bed. And if you are fasting, make dinner the meal that you're skipping. So keep that in mind. I'm gonna come out with my best tips for lunch and breakfast. But again, once we understand the game that you're playing, you can figure out what works best for you. A couple of these small pivots made a huge difference for me and how my body was able to feel when I was waking up the next morning, how I was able to recover after workouts, brain fog. So there's so many cool things wrapped up in this. Play around with it for yourself, see what works best for you.